How did someone think they were completely immune to consequences? I was in 5th grade when Mrs. Keller became our new principal. She walked into that school like she owned the place, wearing her shiny suits and always carrying around this fancy coffee mug that said Principal of the Year on it. My older sister Julie was already in 7th grade, and she said Mrs. Keller was different from all the other principals. The first weird thing I noticed was how she treated the teachers. Miss Garcia, my favorite 3rd grade teacher, suddenly quit in the middle of the year. Then Mr. White from gym class got transferred to another school. Kids started whispering that if you got on Mrs. Keller's bad side, bad things happened to you. But parents loved her. She gave these amazing speeches at PTA meetings about excellence in education and preparing our children for success. My mom would come home from those meetings talking about how lucky we were to have such a dedicated principal. Mrs. Keller always wore pearls and spoke in this fancy voice that made everything sound important. She had all these rules that seemed normal at first. Students had to walk in perfectly straight lines in the hallways. If you smiled too little, you got detention for poor attitude. If you smiled too much, you got detention for disrupting the learning environment. One time, my friend Kevin got suspended for 3 days because he accidentally dropped his lunch tray, and Mrs. Keller said he did it on purpose. The really messed up stuff happened behind closed doors. I only found out because I forgot my math book one day and had to go back to get it after school. I heard Mrs. Keller screaming at Mrs. Johnson, our art teacher, calling her incompetent and a waste of space. When Mrs. Johnson started crying, Mrs. Keller told her to grow up or find another job. Mrs. Keller also had her favorites. She created this fake student council where she picked the winners before anyone even voted. Emma, whose mom was her best friend, won president 3 years in a row, even though nobody liked her. When Tyler ran against Emma and actually got more votes, Mrs. Keller said there was voting fraud and threw out his ballots. The worst thing she did was steal money. She created this fake scholarship called the Excellence Award and asked all the parents to donate money for it. She said it was for exceptional students in need, but then she gave the scholarship to Brandon, whose family was super rich and whose dad owned half the businesses in town. Nobody questioned it because Mrs. Keller said Brandon was academically gifted. For 10 years, she ran that school like her own kingdom. She drove a brand new SUV every year while teachers had to buy their own supplies. She redecorated her office 3 times, adding a leather couch and expensive paintings. Meanwhile, our cafeteria still had tables from the 1980s, with duct tape holding them together. Everything changed when Mr. Bell got hired as our new history teacher. He was quiet and polite, but something about him made Mrs. Keller nervous. When she told him to give Chloe an A just because her mom was on the school board, Mr. Bell asked to see Chloe's actual work first. Mrs. Keller's face turned red, but she couldn't really argue. Mr. Bell started asking questions about things that didn't make sense, like why the Excellence Scholarship Fund had raised $5,000 but only gave out $2,000, or why Mrs. Keller's degree was hanging crooked in her office. Turns out the frame was empty behind the glass. One night, Mr. Bell looked up the fancy university Mrs. Keller always bragged about attending. He couldn't find her name anywhere. No graduation records, no student directory, nothing. Then he searched for the elite charter school she claimed to have run before coming here. That didn't exist either. Mr. Bell spent weeks gathering evidence. He made copies of her fake credentials, got statements from teachers who were too scared to speak up before, and tracked where the scholarship money actually went. He even found out her teaching license belonged to a completely different person in another state. At the next school board meeting, Mr. Bell walked in with a thick folder and handed it to the chairman. Mrs. Keller was sitting in the front row, confident as always, but when they called her into a private room an hour later, she came out looking like she'd seen a ghost. The very next day, Mrs. Keller didn't show up to school. Her office was cleaned out, and her secretary told everyone she had resigned for personal reasons. But word got around fast. She'd never finished college, never had any of those degrees, never ran any charter school. She'd been living a complete lie for 10 years. The police arrested her 2 weeks later for fraud and stealing public money. Turns out she'd been taking cash from multiple school programs and funneling it into her own accounts.